At 64, Daryl Donovan led a life marked by routine and quiet hardship. Years spent as a construction worker had taken a toll on his body, leaving him with aching knees, a stiff back, and a right shoulder that never fully healed after a fall from scaffolding. His modest pension, strained by escalating medical bills and the rising cost of living in Philadelphia, compelled him to return to work, not in construction, but in one of the most humble professions, a garbage collector. For Daryl, this job was his last option. Each morning before dawn, he laced up his scuffed boots and donned his heavy jacket, then climbed into the rumbling garbage truck to navigate the maze of Philadelphia streets alongside his partner, Paul. They worked their way through residential neighborhoods, bustling business districts, and neglected industrial areas. The routine was grueling yet predictable, allowing Daryl to keep his mind off his troubles. However, on a frigid January morning in 2018, the monotony of Daryl's life was about to be disrupted. The biting wind cut through his jacket as he hoisted a particularly heavy dumpster into the truck's compactor. The rhythmic roar of crushing trash drowned out most sounds, but this time, something caught his attention, a distinct metallic clink that stood out amid the usual noise. Intrigued, Daryl leaned over the dumpster. Among crumpled papers and discarded office supplies, a small object glimmered faintly in the weak dawn light. He reached in and pulled out a tarnished brass key attached to a weathered leather fob marked with the number 416. Daryl turned it over in his calloused hand, his curiosity piqued. Just some office junk, he muttered to himself, pocketing the key without a second thought. The day carried on, the key forgotten amidst the grind of his shift. But this unassuming object would set off a series of events that would pull Daryl into a mystery far beyond anything he had ever imagined. A week passed before Daryl thought about the key again. On his rare day off, he decided to clean out his work jacket, and out tumbled the small brass key. The embossed 416 seemed oddly familiar, sparking a vague memory of a row of storage units near one of his routes. They were old, rust-streaked, and largely abandoned, much like the office buildings nearby. With nothing pressing to do, Daryl decided to investigate. He drove his battered truck to the outskirts of the industrial district. The storage facility was as decrepit as he remembered, its sign faded to near illegibility. The gate hung askew on its hinges, and the lot was empty, save for a few derelict cars. Walking down the row of units, Daryl's heart quickened when he spotted the number 416 stenciled above a rusted metal door. The padlock securing it was old and corroded, but the key slid in smoothly and turned with a satisfying click. The lock fell away, and Daryl hesitated. This wasn't his property, and he had no idea what might be inside, but the pull of curiosity outweighed his reservations. He rolled up the door to reveal a dark, musty space filled with forgotten relics. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, filtering through gaps in the structure. Boxes, filing cabinets, and broken furniture were stacked haphazardly. At first glance, it looked like the remnants of an office abandoned in haste. Daryl's initial disappointment was tempered by a faint glimmer of something unusual in the far corner. Partially obscured by a collapsed chair sat a large metal case. Its surface was dented and scratched, but its combination lock looked sturdy and new. The case felt out of place, as if it had been deliberately hidden. The case was heavy, almost too heavy for Daryl to drag to his truck. He struggled but managed, his heart pounding with exertion and excitement. Back at his small apartment, he placed the case in the middle of his living room and stared at it. "What the hell have you gotten yourself into, old man?" he muttered. He retrieved his old bolt cutters from a closet. The lock resisted at first, but eventually gave way with a loud snap. Daryl's hands trembled as he lifted the lid, revealing its contents. Bundles of cash neatly arranged in rows. Each bundle was marked $10,000, and there were dozens of them. Nestled among the cash were velvet pouches filled with gold jewelry and loose diamonds. Daryl sat back, his mind reeling. The sheer volume of wealth was staggering, more money than he had ever dreamed of. But with the excitement came a flood of questions. Whose money was this? Why had it been left here? And most importantly, what was he going to do with it? Daryl decided to hide the cash in several locations. A fireproof safe hidden beneath his floorboards, a hollowed-out section of his closet wall, and even a rented storage unit under a fake name. He returned the case, now containing only the jewelry in gold, to the original storage unit, securing it with a new padlock to avoid suspicion. For months, Daryl's life continued as normal. He was careful not to draw attention, spending the money sparingly and maintaining his job. But paranoia began to creep in. The weight of his secret pressed heavily on his shoulders, making him hyper-aware of every glance, every conversation. Were his neighbors noticing his slightly better groceries? Had anyone seen him frequent the storage unit? In the spring of 2019, the story took a chilling turn. A local news report revealed that the abandoned office building near the storage units had been demolished. During the teardown, workers discovered hidden documents detailing illegal activities, drug operations, embezzlement, and encoded references to 416. Police followed the lead to the storage unit and found the metal case, now locked with Daryl's replacement padlock. The discovery of the jewelry and gold sparked an investigation, and the shiny new lock raised suspicions. While authorities couldn't confirm what, if anything, was missing, the altered lock suggested tampering. The case became a high-profile mystery, fueling speculation and media coverage. News outlets speculated wildly about the case's origins. Was it cartel money? A corrupt politician's stash? Daryl watched the news, growing paranoid. He had thought he'd covered his tracks, but the lock was an oversight he couldn't undo. Each passing day felt like a countdown to discovery. His nights were restless, his dreams plagued by flashing sirens and interrogations. In the summer of 2019, Daryl made a life-altering decision. He sold his truck, packed his belongings, and left Philadelphia for a remote town in Montana. Using cash, he purchased a small cabin deep in the woods, ensuring his privacy. His escape was deliberate, every step planned meticulously to avoid leaving a trail. Life in Montana was a stark contrast to the chaos he left behind. Daryl spent his days tending to his property, fishing in nearby streams, and savoring the quiet. He remained frugal, using the money only when necessary and always in small amounts. But even in the tranquility of his new home, the past lingered. He'd wake in the middle of the night, heart racing at imagined sounds. Every knock at the door, every unexpected visitor sent his pulse skyrocketing. The investigation back in Philadelphia eventually went cold. The lack of leads and evidence turned the story into a local legend, a tantalizing mystery with no resolution. Daryl followed the updates from afar, each one reinforcing his decision to leave. In the solitude of his cabin, Daryl often reflected on the fateful day he discovered the key. That single moment of curiosity had irrevocably altered the course of his life, granting him freedom, but at a significant cost. Paranoia lingered, a constant reminder that secrets, no matter how deeply buried, always carried their weight. As the years went by, Daryl faded into obscurity, just another quiet old man in a remote town. Yet the key, now kept in a small box on his mantle, stood as a silent witness to a life transformed by chance and a chain of secrets he would take to his grave. Years later, a young journalist researching cold cases stumbled upon the unsolved mystery of Unit 416. Intrigued, she delved into its history, piecing together fragments of evidence and testimonies. Her investigation reignited public interest, but Daryl, now a recluse in his 70s, remained elusive. Somewhere in the Montana wilderness, he spent his days holding tightly to the secrets that had shaped the latter part of his life.